you driven, ambitious, and ready to earn? WESN, the content capital, is expanding, and we're looking for dynamic media sales executives to join our team. Sell powerful advertising solutions across television, digital, and social media platforms, and help brands tell their story. If you have strong communication skills, a passion for sales, and the drive to succeed, join WESN today. Send your CV to marketing@wsncc.com or WhatsApp 6861662 and start building your future.
In this day of stay-at-home and work from home, home has never meant more than it does today. Whether you're looking to buy, rent, or build your new home, now is the time to get going. Gittins & Gittins real estate agents are here to take you to that place of your dreams. Let us take you home. We'll help you find that rental to rest along the way, or journey with you to find your home destination. Investors and commercial enterprises too, call us and we'll walk the distance to place your business in just the right location. Owners, leave the headaches to us. We'll find your tenants or buyers while you stay at home. We'll even manage your property at your bidding. Anything real estate, come home to Gittins & Gittins Real Estate. Call us at 760-3280 or 747-1220 or visit us at 16 Fifth Street in Woodbrook.
WESN.
Good morning. I'm Sean Michael Small. This is Talking Points. A lot to get through today. Of course, the opposition had a press conference where it made certain claims. Some of those claims, of course, have made big headlines in the stories. They may not necessarily be the only ones thinking those things with regards to the threats, or at least in some cases, the lack of signs thereof. Not necessarily saying the lack of a threat, right? A communication faux pas, perhaps. We'll get into that later when we welcome Ashraf later on the show. A couple of things to get through before that. One of the situations that I guess I wish I didn't have to acknowledge, the missing child in Tobago. I didn't speak about it yesterday. There isn't really much to say. Seemingly there's issues with the story. How do you lose a child like that? On some level, the police, they're investigating. They're not necessarily revealing everything, I believe. There are things I would not put in the public space. This is in an investigative stage. It is not prudent to just disclose everything to the public at this time. This is from Senior Superintendent Rod Hill-Kirk. At the end of the day, it's a child. There's no good way to feel about it. There's only one way to feel about it. It's bad. Now the question really is, can it be resolved? This is, at least at this point, as much as it might feel like a long shot, we've seen narratives or things go against the usual narrative. When the lady was kidnapped, we found out the morning of that night, that very same night, she was rescued. So it doesn't always have to work out the way we expect. But with that said, cling on to hope for the life of a child. I still fear the worst. That's just the way how these things goes most of the time. Hopefully, this is not one of those times. And we'll deal with the consequences of if worst case scenarios occur. And hopefully we don't have to touch on that. But it's just one of those things. The Chief Secretary himself is somewhat upset. This is one of those things where it's not just about this one child. It's about the response so that society learns the lesson to not allow this to happen again, whatever that entails, right? That's multifaceted, from first responders to community people to various families. Learn from the mistakes of other families, learn from the mistakes of maybe a flaw in whatever, the workflow, the life flow of a community. Learn from the mistakes of the emergency response, of the government response, whatever. So it's important that for one child, the Chief Sec takes it seriously. I applaud that. Take it all seriously. If we take it all seriously, what will tend to happen is these things will remain an exception as opposed to a more regular occurrence. It's very easy for society to slip. Now, switching course, making a big left turn. The House Speaker was defending the Minister of Homeland Security and his refusal to answer questions with regard to the ongoing state of emergency. Now, the opposition chief whip brought it up at the opposition press conference yesterday. I'm not necessarily here to speak about the avoidance of the questions, although I don't necessarily see one of the things that I thought was, because the opposition chief whip, he was speaking about, well, how many people were, I believe, charged under anti-gang legislation. Let me just check my notes. Yes, charged under anti-gang legislation and charged for the plot to murder law enforcement officers. And in my mind, I don't really see the need to not answer the question, because the number of people charged or not, that would be known to the criminals. The criminals will have this information. They know if they weren't charged or if they were charged. They know if members of their crew, members of their organization, their syndicate were picked up or not. The only people who don't know are the members of the public who are concerned, or maybe some aren't concerned, but that's their choice, and in which case this whole thing matters not to them. But the only people you're keeping the truth from in this case, I would imagine, and maybe Ashraf could correct me later, is members of the public who have concerns. Not any part of the criminal enterprise. They know fully well who got arrested. They probably know who arrested them, what station they're in, They probably know what kind of dog food the arresting officer. No, probably not. But so there is that. But the real issue that I want to talk about is the fact that I'm starting to, you see, I'm on the outside looking in, right? And you can never really truly speak to the intentions of any individual. You don't know what's going on in their head. That said, to me, it seems as though the House Speaker, and as an individual, as a person, I do believe any opinion of him that says, that shines him in a positive light on a personal level. If you know him personally and think he is a good man, I won't doubt that. What I think is happening is, at the end of the day, while in some instances he will stand on the necessity to follow the rules and he will derive strength from that, at times it seems as though he doesn't necessarily have full control over the House in a manner that allows him to exercise his authority in an unbiased way. I'm not saying he's biased, but what I am saying is I don't think he could corral these things, and that's why they get out of hand. Now, it's easier to deal with the opposition. You could figure that out. It's harder to deal with the government. And we get what we get. And I understand on some level, yes, he is from that side. But I feel as though this is another one of those instances, and he's not the first one. His predecessor, his immediate predecessor, did not necessarily, operate as an example of how best to do this. But we have a system of government which ultimately, I would argue, is one, flawed, but then two, the flaws are magnified because of the differences in circumstances between us and the point of origin. And the point of origin is larger, and that scale does cover up for some of the deficiencies, like cabinet being, in our case, such a large proportion of parliament. Too large of a proportion of parliament to the point where we do not have separation of the legislature and the executive. We just don't. And if anyone wants to say that we have separation of powers on all practical levels, you're either trying to fool the public or you're fooling yourself. And the speaker is like the AG and a few other roles where, and to some extent the president, you are, yes, from or part of a political machine, but you are supposed to have certain aspects of your office at the very least, like the AG. The AG is not necessarily supposed to be independent of cabinet, per se. But some of his functions goes beyond cabinet. He doesn't just represent cabinet, he represents the people. Reginald Moore never understood that. That's why we got what we got. We got what we paid for. The speaker on some level is the presiding officer of the House. And the longer the term of office goes on, the more the inequalities will eventually shine through. And on some level, it might even be to the point where the public will look at him with bias against him that might not even be fair, but that's what's going to happen if he doesn't figure out how to balance things, one, and two, keep everybody under control. Because it seems as though he turns a blind eye to when members of the government bench undermine him. And at the end of the day, I feel as though, look, we just assume the speaker is going to be biased for the government. And on some level, that's not what undermines Parliament, but it contributes to Parliament being undermined. And perhaps one could make an argument it has contributed. Again, it's not the main reason. The main reason is the behavior of the members themselves, but it has contributed, I think, to the behavior or lack thereof we see in what's supposed to be the most important institution of this nation. On full display for school children, including when members of Parliament are threatened last Friday, school children in the audience. All right. The Prime Minister saying that our country is not going to recognize the Secretary General. This is one of those things where I think the Prime Minister has a point. The long and short is I don't want to spend too much time on this. I just question, you might have a point. Do you have to go this far? That's like saying, your friend ate the leftover KFC in the fridge, your roommate, so you decide to sue him. You have a point to be mad. They ate your leftover food. You didn't offer it to them. Do you need to sue them over it? Now, to what extent is the vote or the reappointment of the Secretary General, to what extent is it a big enough issue to essentially, you're not saying you're going to leave, but that's where the threat is pointing to. And that basically means, at least for Trinidad and Tobago, the end of CARICOM. Whether CARICOM continues on without us or not, it means the end of our participation in CARICOM. Now, I could speculate a lot. I would imagine the government would love to not provide any money to CARICOM, not because necessarily they don't like CARICOM, but rather they would like to cut costs, and they are going to do it differently to the PNM. That's just the way it goes. But is this warranted? This I'm not that sure. Because even the president of Guyana, he came out and defended this situation as much as he is seemingly more aligned with TNT with regards to CARICOM than the rest of the islands. In this situation, he did not back the Prime Minister. So that's one big point. But it's somewhat of an indirect one because, again, but I do believe under the rules, I can't remember. I can't remember. There's a lot of technicalities. He says, okay, I think Karen, in her research, they needed everybody. Regardless, is this big of an issue? Because you have to understand, international treaty, it's not like a country's legislature where you have to. International treaty is, at the end of the day, it all depends on what the nations interpret it as being or accept it to be, right? At any given moment. And if all the members want to turn a blind eye to it, there's nothing to compel us to say we have to do it, as opposed to laws of a nation where a government cannot turn a blind eye to the law without being found guilty of some sort of breach. So is this the hill to die on? I don't know. We'll see how it goes. The police service got new radar guns. All I'll say is they got 20 new radar guns. Now, I don't know where the previous radar guns disappeared to into the ether. They might be in operation, but as far as I'm aware, they disappeared into the ether. Now, I don't speed, so obviously, I haven't been stopped by a cop with a radar gun. But I do see people speeding all the time. I don't know if they get picked up or not. 20 radar guns, I mean, is this to cover just the Churchill Roosevelt Highway? Just the highways alone? Tobago? Certain parts of Trinidad? You know, there are various areas where we speed. The highway is the biggest culprit, yes. I don't know if, for the two main highways in Trinidad, if 20 radar guns are enough. Maybe they are. The thing is, I remember when they had cameras and I guess you could say speedometers, radar, fixed radar sites around the savannah. And the whole point was everybody, once they found out that, started driving. Like if Miss Daisy was in the back seat for a couple months. And then once people started to figure out the camera stopped working, no one's checking. You know, no one cares about what it says, the sign says if you're speeding or not. People got right back to driving how they drove. Getting the speed guns is the first step. Assuming you have enough, at least to make a start, now can you implement them so that they are consistently used? You have consistent coverage across all relevant areas, all shifts in the police service so that there's no gap. Because the thing about a gap, it's not just people could speed when the radar guns are not in service. It's that when you're inconsistent, people are not going to get the message of you can't speed. They're going to get the message of you can speed and get away with it some of the time. They're not going to necessarily do the math on when and when not. So they'll just do it all of the time. And now you'll have however many few police officers. Think about it. Do you think that there are only 20 people speeding on our highways at any one point in time? If we have 20 radar guns, in theory, unless you're going to have multiple units deployed on one spot with one radar gun, you can chase down 20 drivers at a time. And when the public figures out you can't catch everybody, people are just going to say, I'll speed because we're all speeding. Good luck arresting us all, ticketing us all, fining us all, charging us all. So this is one of those things where it has to be consistent. Any perceived gap is going to psychologically encourage people to just continue doing whatever it is they're doing and not have the intended effect of discouraging people from speeding because they would know that there is a consequence guaranteed at the end. The new Rocky Point Hotel, the Chief Secretary has 4 criteria he needs the hotel to meet in order to fully support it. right? So one of the things, though, that he mentioned, now we didn't mention preserving the environment and allowing the public to continue to access the beach. That's fine. I agree with that. That's always an issue of, oh, there's a new hotel and they close off the beach. They make a private beach. Because one hotel has technically done that to some degree, right? I don't know if you actually just swam in there, if they would be able to do anything to stop you. Once you're on the sand and not on their grounds, as far as I'm aware, legally, you're fine. Of course, no one's actually going to be so shameless to do that. What's the point? And one would imagine Sandals potentially would have had a similar arrangement because they would need a significant footprint, not just for their rooms, but the recreational facilities that comes with a resort like Sandals. No, the issue I have is when the chief says we need 4- and 5-star rooms. Now, the thing with Sandals is they would have been a one-stop shop. They would have had all the amenities, right? You don't necessarily need to leave Sandals. That's what's enticing with that specific model. Now, for us to just put 4- or 5-star rooms in Tobago, the implication is we have a market where there's demand for Tobago to have 4- or 5-star rooms. No, the airlines have a demand that they want more higher-end customers to help offset fuel costs, increase profitability. That's the airlines' demands. Tobago is not set up to have a large influx of 4- and 5-star rooms. Because think about it. What do we have for people of that level of wealth to do in Tobago? Now, granted, there was one time, one Easter, or summer, I'm talking 15 years ago, maybe 20 years ago. Yeah, because I might have still been in school. A large private yacht, and when I say yacht, it kind of undersells the size of this thing. It was like a small private cruise ship, really. It had multiple launches. It had crew for the launches to just sit and wait on the owner, because this thing was as big as a building, right? This thing is bigger than most buildings in Port of Spain, to be honest. It had at least one 40-foot, 20-foot to 40-foot launch, and maybe a couple other dinghies and some jet skis. So the crew brought the owner. I can't remember if the rest of his family came with him. Potentially, yes. And they basically just parked themselves up next to a tree, next to where the old Pigeon Point gate was, which is just before the new gate. So somewhere in that vicinity, right, where they have the dive shops. Just park themselves up next to a random tree to sit under the tree and enjoy the sunshine and the sound of the waves and what have you. No beach facilities, no bar, no nothing. So I get that, right? Not all rich people need, you know, all the glitz and glamour and blah, blah, blah. But on some level, this guy didn't need it because he had it all packed up in his mega super yacht, right? You want to have 4- and 5-star rooms. At some point, a significant amount of your customers for rooms like that, they're going to want things to do. And they don't necessarily want to have to fight up for space in the typical beaches, fight up with people trying to solicit them to rent beach chairs, whether they want to rent beach chairs or not. It has reached the point where we have commercialized our entire tourism product in the country, but also in Tobago, for a certain economic bracket. So the level of service, what's offered, you know, and also the fact that high-end customers don't want to be in things like lines and crowds and don't want to wait. They want VIP treatment. We are not set up for VIP treatment. The airlines, because I believe part of the thing was, this is what the report says. Augustine yesterday said he believes the project can boost Tobago's tourism sector and attract major airlines to the island. He noted that the island's image has received a hit recently, with British Airways refusing to promote 2 of its hotels owing to complaints recently. You can't just compensate for that with higher-end room stock and the entire... Do we have high-end restaurants in Tobago? Even if we wanted to open a high-end restaurant in Tobago for the tourists, the foreign tourism market, in part because we don't market the country, nor do we market Tobago, the foreign tourism market is generally limited to the beginning of the year. And I think it has boiled down. At one point, it might have been, late December into February. Now it might have just boiled down to January. Maybe January, February, right? Because, of course, winter months. Cool. If we have a high-end restaurant for tourists, how is that restaurant going to sustain itself March to November? Yes, there are foreigners on the island March to November. It's not the majority of customers. And it's probably not enough to support a high-end restaurant. And of course, if you're a wealthy person, are you going to eat in the same restaurant every night? Is that what you want to do? That's number one. Number two, our tourism market is not a high-end market with regards that we are a budget destination. We are a best deal destination. We are a good price for what we offer destination, right? We have a lot of middle class, upper middle class, lower middle class tourists from Europe. They don't necessarily go to all the restaurants all the time. And part of the reason why we have that is we leaned into that. A lot of the food offerings and recreational offerings are at a certain price point, and it's not at a high-end price point, right? I do think Cocoa Reef, one of the higher-end hotels on the island, has been facing issues, of course, ever since COVID, but maybe even before that. Magdalena, the government wants to sell Magdalena. Why? You can't just have room stock of a certain quality and the rest of the product is for a lower price point, for a lower customer. And let's not forget, the higher end customers, we would then be competing with other higher end situations, right? How well are we prepared to do that when the competitive advantage of Tobago is not casinos and fancy nightclubs? Need much more fancier nightclubs than what we got. And it's not all of these high-end VIP areas where everything costs $1,000 a pop, and high-end liquor, high-end, high-end customer service of the highest degree. That's not what it's about. It's a lot of fast food, a lot of takeaway, a lot more low-key island lifestyle entertainment, which has its appeal, but we're not geared for that. But the airlines want the higher room stock because they want to be able to sell more expensive seats. Now, maybe there might be a way to do like what some Caribbean islands do, where you don't really have much to offer on the island, but the rooms and the hotel itself and the hotel experience is high-end, and maybe you put just enough in the hotel to make the tourists happy. But I don't know. I don't think we're geared for that yet. So to say one hotel is going to solve the problem, because here's the other issue. Magdalena was supposed to be this. When they built when they renovated and rebranded Magdalena, I believe it was, that was the plan. The plan was, well, we'll just do that and it'll magically make things better. This hotel it's supposed to be a 3.5-star development. This hotel having 4- and 5-star rooms ain't gonna solve your problems. Because at any day, we are just about every year on the list of top 10 hidden gems in either the Caribbean or the world. Just saying. Maybe we should solve that. All right, let's take a break. When we come back, we'll welcome Ashraf, get into the big story, another national security story. We started yesterday, we'll continue today. Stay tuned, this is Tokamen at WSN, we'll be right back after this.
If these walls could talk, they'd cry uncle. They didn't plan to become offices or yoga studios. But they've stood by us, even when we got a little stir-crazy. For that, they deserve some thanks. They deserve Benjamin Moore.
Stroke is a leading cause of death and disability worldwide. Globally, 1 in 4 adults over the age of 25 will have a stroke in their lifetime.
Usually you would then have a conversation with the relatives, let them know exactly what's the status, what you were thinking.
We are not really ignoring them. We are acting on the patient at hand, after which we tend to communicate to them.
Yeah.
Are you driven, ambitious, and ready to earn? WESN, the content capital, is expanding, and we're looking for dynamic media sales executives to join our team. Sell powerful advertising solutions across television, digital, and social media platforms, and help brands tell their story. If you have strong communication skills, a passion for sales, and the drive to succeed, join WESN today. Send your CV to marketing@wsncc.com or WhatsApp 68-61662 and start building your future.
Knowing how to tell authentic is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Find it, match it, search it. Step 1. Find the style number on the tag. Step 2. Match the style number inside the jersey with the number on the tag. Step 3. Search it. A quick Google search of the style number will verify the jersey is authentic when the search results match the jersey being searched. Don't be fooled by counterfeit jerseys. Before you buy, remember to find it, match it, search it.
Fan Zone, 2 locations nationwide. Center City Mall, Chaguanas and Movietown, Port of Spain. Nationwide delivery available.
In this day of stay-at-home and work from home, home has never meant more than it does today. Whether you're looking to buy, rent, or build your new home, now is the time to get going. Gittins & Gittins real estate agents are here to take you to that place of your dreams. Let us take you home. We'll help you find that rental to rest along the way, or journey with you to find your home destination. Investors and commercial enterprises too, call us and we'll walk the distance to place your business in just the right location. Owners, leave the headaches to us. We'll find your tenants or buyers while you stay at home. We'll even manage your property at your bidding. Anything real estate, come home to Gittins & Gittins Real Estate. Call us at 760-3280 or 747-1220 or visit us at 16 Fifth Street in Woodbrook.
Hi, I am Emiliana Beechan and I am a mental health and conflict resolution consultant. Welcome to Mind Matters, the show where we explore the intricate world of mental health and the art of conflict resolution. Join us as we hear from mental health professionals, conflict resolution experts, and everyday people who have transformed their lives through understanding and communication. Mind Matters, WESN Content Capital.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, the Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378, or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
The home of Caribbean content is growing, and we welcome you to be a part of the #1 platform for young personalities who are driven to make a positive impact in society. As we continue to reach every corner of Trinidad and Tobago through our daily broadcasts, our social media pages, or through our 75+ digital billboards across the nation, contact us to learn about our competitive rates via marketing at wesncc.com or call us at 628-5835. WESN Content Capital, television with a difference.
This is 10 Questions. I'm Andy Johnson. The distance from where we should be in the world in going forward on our commitments with climate change.
The effects of climate change that cannot be accounted for. It's called loss and damage, and we're seeing loss and damage happening so much more in this decade and the previous decade.
The principal term there was this question of the correspondent banking issues.
That is why we're trying to build capacity with this country here, Trinidad and Tobago, and other countries in the region.
Man is not showing any signs of stopping or even slowing down. More than half of the forest in Trinidad is already gone.
All the plants and all the animals and all of the nice clean water and fresh air and everything had to be on this planet for humanity to have a chance.
We have small change when it comes to countries that can take decisions, and when they speak, the world listens.
The General Assembly is a very democratic forum. And Trinidad and Tobago has the same vote as Canada, in spite of the obvious difference in size.
Welcome back to Talking Point. The Attorney General has warned us that there was a new threat against government MPs last Friday. And of course, now that has set the tone for what? I mean, the opposition, they expressed their opinion at the press conference. We could get into that a little bit. But more importantly, I guess it leaves the rest of us wondering what threat, I guess, at this point. Because this is, I believe, the third time, at the very least, that you could say is standing on its own 2 feet, where the government says, oh, there's a threat against government officials. Joining me to discuss this new chapter in our state of emergency, we have soon-to-be former police officer Inspector Ashraf Ali.
Morning, Sean.
I think you have like, what, half a year left now?
Well, the way things going on, we don't know what's going on in this place, huh?
Yeah, we'll reach November, and you'll be like 1 or 2 months away, and they'll be like, yeah, we're activating you.
we don't know.
Now, if they activate you, technically, they'll activate you for you to just retire, like right after?
I don't know.
Or given your rank, could they like say, nah, you can't retire yet, in some capacity?
With the new system that they want to implement with extending the ages in the public sector.
True. So they might do it just in time to rope you back in?
We don't know what is the outcome of it I am just playing it by ear, day by day.
Right, so on behalf of Ashraf Ali, I will ask Parliament to refrain from passing anything like that until the end of the year. Till the end of the year, right? And then you could have at it. Okay.
Yeah, so
with that said now,
it's interesting with this new development with the threats. And I'm not saying it's not real. I'm not saying if it's not real.
Right.
But what is interesting is the manner in which it was shared.
Mm-hmm.
My personal view is that I would have expected the Commissioner of Police to bring that to the public domain. This is me.
Yes.
Something of that nature would have been better done by the Commissioner of Police with the Attorney General and the Minister of Defense, because it's serious that threats to public officials, especially MPs, it's not no threat to take lightly. It's a serious threat.
Mm-hmm.
We had those threats And what is like crying wolf now is that all the SOZs have been some of the foundational threats to public officials.
Now, I like that you say use the term crying wolf. And note, he said up front, he's not saying that this is fake.
Exactly.
But what you can't get away from is the first time it happens, you're like, all right, we believe you. The second time it happens, because I believe one of the extensions, they basically said, well, it's both for crime and for threats against the government, right? The first extension was they actually pivoted to crime.
Yes.
Then the second extension, they said it was for both. And now we've reached this stage where they're saying threats against the government again.
And
And when asked if anyone was charged with regards to threats against law enforcement officers, they refrain from answering. And as I mentioned, I don't know who you keeping that information secret from. It can't be the criminals, because they would know.
But so saying it in Parliament is like you're already saying it in the public domain.
Yeah.
So what is the difference between using a press conference, proper communication by the Office of the Commissioner, because that is a serious threat?
I could tell you what the difference is.
I know the
Parliament, you have privilege, but more importantly, a press conference has reporters with questions.
Right. So that is what I'm saying. So you're from my perspective, you're already trading into the public domain.
No, but
yeah, because
potentially they want to avoid that.
So they want to avoid it. But
I believe when they announced the current SOE, it was done with only TTT in the room.
Right.
And then the AG had to say, no, the media was invited. Meanwhile, everybody else seemingly was not there for the press conference.
If there is a threat, and once the threat is existing and the commissioner confirms that based on the reports, the commissioner said that they cannot divulge much information about it because of their procedures and policies, right? Good. Mm-hmm. But the AG said that he got permission from the commissioner to say that, right? To inform. So it means that the AG wouldn't come up with that just so unless the commissioner would have advised, right, of the potential threats. So let's say the threat is existing. The threat exists, currently exists. This is 1 week from the information, right? It's about a week.
Yes. Well, yes. This is Friday, so it was the threat was an incident that we don't know of.
So
that was a perceived threat.
Has there been any elevated security measures seen or unseen by the general public from since Friday to now?
Oh, I'll do you better. So from last week, Friday, till now, as far as the opposition is aware, nothing has changed. No extra measures were put into place. They weren't told anything. And according to the Chief Whip, the staff of Parliament was not made aware of anything, and the security of Parliament was not made aware of anything. This is in a report in today's paper, so that's not based on the Chief Whip, from what I understand.
I saw the report this morning when I was going through some of the articles. And yes, so that begs the question. But even in the public domain, outside of the MPs, when the MPs are traversing on their own business, both opposition and the government ministers, have there been increased physical security presence? I don't know. I'm not in the direct presence of it, but when you look at it generally, it's business as usual. And I am saying, if that is the case, there should have been expectation that if those threats are real threats that need to be taken very seriously, even the overall heightened security apparatus within within law enforcement should have been elevated, because we can't afford a lot of movements because of the nature of that threat again. So it is not working hand in hand. You're hearing a narrative, but you're not seeing the physical actions taking place.
I mean, I would argue, like, what is the point of making the statement? Because it was made apparently during a session where they were passing a bill to provide for parole system. It did pass. There was amendments.
But here,
some from the opposition.
But here's it.
So, like, it's not like the statement you could see the direct correlation. Well, he said this to help pass the bill.
But you know what was the irony between that statement and the bill? It took away all the value of a very positive A++ bill.
There you go. Because
no
one's talking about that
attention to that bill, which I will give it an A++.
What I find interesting is, so you had a situation where the opposition essentially made an unforced error, whatever is the cause, and got Senator John Bates in trouble, right? Whether she got herself in trouble or she was instructed to do things and got in trouble, I'll just say the opposition. But more importantly, the government comes, takes the ball and rolls with it. Potentially, going too far, but it is what it is. They didn't cause the situation, so you can't necessarily blame them for causing the situation. Then they come a couple of weeks later, they have this great bill where, I know, maybe it's because the opposition apparently did provide amendments and to some extent supported it, I don't know, right? But this should be like, look at how, this is a good example of Parliament doing its job. And it's derailed by an unforced error, because the thing with Senator John Bates and that whole thing with her and Senator Awari is, it just took away from the actual issue of dealing with the pharmaceutical licenses and the importation and the potential monopoly and the issues with getting drugs and the cost of drugs and so on, right? Big issues for TNT, big issues. No, we're talking about political drama. And now, instead of talking about the parole bill, as you point out, and I just find it's ironic, we couldn't even go a month before the other political party in the equation decided, no, hold my beer. I too can make myself look bad for no reason. Because the problem with the AG statement to me is, I'll just say like this, what you're basically saying, there is no indicator to follow up with what he's saying. By all indications, right, there's nothing going on. He just made a statement.
But the AG is not to blame. And I'm saying the AG is not to blame. Based on the media reports, the AG indicated in the Hansard that he was given permission. He was given permission by the commissioner to say this in Parliament. That is on the record. And I read it on the that was on the record.
I just want to point out, if there's one thing the commissioner should have an understanding of above all others, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. He might not understand weapons training or tactical operations or even HR decisions, but intelligence, that's his background, correct? There you go.
So the AG was speaking on information received or relayed from the commissioner in Parliament. So it is not the AG's to blame. The AG presented information based on information received.
According to the report, at least some intelligence officers within the TTPS say they are in the dark concerning any such threats. It makes me wonder if the source of the intelligence came from outside the police.
So I cannot take that as wholesale because of the fact
That's why I said some.
My experience in intelligence for a while, you have a need-to-know basis. Certain levels of confidentiality. So those persons who say, persons in the intelligence community, yes, you could be in intelligence community or intelligence community, but you're at a different level. So then you may not have all that information that the office of the commissioner would have.
But this is where it gets weird, because again, let's just look at the logic, right? Opposition Chief Whip has some questions. The information he's asking for, I would assume is already known to the criminal underworld, right? Who has been charged? They're going to know that. There's no keeping it a secret from the criminals so they don't know what we're doing. Because he's not asking how were they charged and what was the sources of intelligence and evidence to charge them. It's just how many, right? This is something that the criminals don't know. So they're so tight-lipped in theory, right, that they don't want to reveal nothing. But then the AG comes out and is authorized by the commissioner to reveal that there is a threat by which, and I understand what you're saying, right? I'm not saying that that is not true. A threat by which potentially you're going to even have members in the intelligence aspect of the police service not authorized to know what's going on, but you're going to reveal it to the public, which, again, you're not wrong. You're not the cause of the logic not being logical, right? I'm just pointing to the fact of the inconsistencies, because if your modus operandi is don't reveal anything, again, I don't see how this helped pass the bill. So what was the point of saying it, right? The opposition chief will pass a theory. I won't go there just yet.
That's between the Office of the Commissioner and the AG with respect to that. So, but for us on the outside, it's it's concerning that these threats existing, or claim to be existing, I should say, right? Because I don't have any facts to support it, so I have to use the word. It is alleged or claimed to be, right? But you're not seeing the equivalent security measures in place.
Well, not just that, you're not seeing any progress.
Well, and then there's a lot of speculation on different social media platforms. I'm listening to certain other persons commenting that they are speculating that this is a precursor for an extension. I really don't hope, I want to believe this is a precursor for another extension, but when you look at how things are happening, it's a precursor. Now, if it is going down that road, again, we are still going to see, and we are going to, you have to answer the question whether or not whatever crime plan, both by the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service and the administration, what is the actual crime plan? It cannot be again another SOE.
Or at least not another SOE alone.
Well, it cannot be another SOE alone.
Right, and in fact, again, I believe Minister Sturge, in Parliament, so it's on the Hansard, he said an SOE is not a crime plan. But the problem is when you look at the track record, right? And this is the thing, you do it the first time, there's a threat against the government. And I would say this, all right, that's fine, we err on the side of caution. I said this yesterday. I'm not going to say, no, prove it before you put security measures in place, you know? And then maybe you're too late and people end up dead. No, you go with it. Exactly. But that was the first time. So then we had the second time. Now this is the third time. And one of the implications is, given the fact that PDOs were done for people who are already on remand in the maximum security prison, is that prisoners, some of whom were relocated to the barracks to cut off communication, are part of this syndicate that's threatening the government. We still can't get that under control.
And I'm glad you mentioned that, because I was now going to bring a twist to this whole thing. If you are telling us now, in 2026, Friday the 15th of April, Friday 15th of May, 1 week after the announcement, that we are still having problems or challenges with gang members, where we are in a state of emergency, still willing to threaten members of parliament and still walking freely, then something has to be wrong with the measures in which we're putting things in place. There are lawful measures to be put in place. There are legal documentation. Threats, making threats, direct or indirect, it's an offense. So I would have, so let us hear who is the person who make it, because you're talking about gang members, you know. Make examples of these individuals. You cannot be threatening state officials, whether opposition or in government. You can't go around threatening ministers and expect to be having enjoying coffee home, relaxing and saying, okay, I could threaten ministers and nothing else going to happen. Examples that we said, people have to know you can't be threatening state officials, whether you're supporter or not supporter of any administration. Threatening the highest office holders in our country. That is threatening the state.
I want to say this for the PNM supporters, because one of the things that came out in the press conference, they were talking about TTT and how it's being managed or things like that, right? And I get it. out of context, you might have complaints about how certain arms of the state are being managed in the UNC. The problem is, can you truthfully say that the UNC just all of a sudden decided to hijack state entities and that the PNM didn't, on some level, operate them in a similar manner before, right? So if once you open that door, and everyone might think, oh, who cares about the UNC and if there's threats against the UNC, and it very well might be that the threats are specific to the UNC, but regardless, it's similar to, ironically, what Roger Alexander said about the coup. Once you allow this thing to happen, it will open the door in the minds of individuals that this is now a possibility that we can get away with threatening politicians, and it will come back to bite
And
the other side.
Is not, and when we politicize threats of this nature,
yes,
we lose the essence of our security. Because if you are saying it's only one type of, one set of government ministers being threatened as opposed to the other. Well, if this is a UNC ministers, PNM safe. If it's PNM ministers, UNC safe. But at the end of the day, like I keep saying, the criminal elements, they are not threatening a minister alone, no. They are threatening, sorry, they are not threatening an individual. They are threatening the state official, whether it is a PNM, UNC, the institution, and we cannot allow people or any group to lay threats against these individuals.
I think the government's political opponents, not necessarily, I don't necessarily think the PNM themselves will be pushing it quite this far, but I suspect PNM supporters might be like, well, yeah, no, it's only stage day one, because of all of the allegations and his connections, right? But as your point, it's not going to stop at him.
No, it is not. Where does it, who is the other person they want to threat? Whether, let's be real, Minister Sturge, in his previous, the position that he held, he's a lawyer.
Yes.
He would have defense attorney, and he would have exercised his authority and his profession the way he's supposed to.
In fact, technically, our system of criminal justice requires good defense attorneys.
Right? So,
just saying,
not because he would have defended individuals, the justice system in which he was part of, he had to be professional in his capacity. Mm-hmm. Same thing with the Minister of Homeland Security, who was a former police officer. He would have been biased toward criminal elements because he was there to uphold the law, right? And his actions was against criminal elements to do certain things. Not because, so are we going to hold those things against both of them as well as other ministers who had other portfolios prior to becoming politicians?
I want to take you to an example of the worst case scenario of politicizing crime, which is very similar to some of the things that we're seeing here. The actual crime situation might not be similar, but the narratives around it and the framework is somewhat similar, and it makes me worry. I don't think the conclusion or the root cause is at play here. Let me just say that up front. So I don't think that our situation is just like this situation, but I fear that at some point it might be. In Washington, D.C., you remember when the President Trump, he sent in federal, I think, National Guard and federal law enforcement to go, and a lot of people were up in arms. How could you do this? How could you do this? And at some point, at least the narrative was about how crime was falling in D.C. It has come out, right? I don't know how recent it is, right? But it eventually came out that the reason why the crime statistics were dropping, people weren't feeling safe. Even according to Joe Scarborough, MSNBC, nowhere close to being a conservative, he said his own personal experience, he didn't feel safe in Washington. It was because the police department was systematically stripped apart or defunded to the point where they just didn't hire new officers.
Yeah.
So they were downsized to the point of being put in a difficult situation. But then the politics of the day didn't want, because it was a democratic controlled city, they didn't want the opposition or the opposing party to be seen as right. So pressure was put on the police officers to some extent, whether it was to keep the job or for politics or whatever, to underreport crimes. So in one case, if it was an attack with a firearm, they'll just label it as an assault, right? And it was done large scale. That's how the statistics dropped, right? The reason why I say, one, it was a situation where crime was politicized heavily, and two, it was a situation where the statistics went down, but the population didn't feel safe. Now, I'm not saying that our police are underreporting crime, but what I am saying is those two areas, isn't that arguably what we're experiencing? Well, the statistics are dropping, we don't feel safe, and crime is highly politicized.
I would give you the different spin to it. The police don't underreport crime. The public underreports crime. Right? I can remember when the gender-based violence unit came about.
Yeah.
In a very short space of time, the amount of reports that was reported, the question was asked whether or not, why are we so violent?
The rate just skyrocketed.
Yes. And it was not because it wasn't existing already. It was because the general public decided, because of the trust and confidence in the unit and the manner in which it was operating, the professional manner in which it was operating, still existing now.
Yes.
They came forward and there was a barragement of reports. And we asked ourselves, if all of this, these sexual offenses have been taking place over the years, how many more offenses involving children and of sexual abuse and for minors and were taking place and nobody was reporting it?
Yeah.
That is what is happening. That what happens with statistics. We only could report what was report or provide statistics of what was reported. There is a large portion of unreported data, unrecorded crimes that persons don't have confidence in the organization to bring forward. And if they should, and our statistics increase with the number of reports, what they would how it would reflect on the narrative. The narrative would be our crime has increased, but our crime has not been increasing, you know. The perception of crime right now is there's a lot of crime taking place, but they may not have been reported, those crimes, because they don't have confidence in law enforcement to address it.
I find this interesting because I never thought of it quite that way. I knew that the gender-based violence unit was performing well, but I never thought about the public perception of the unit.
That is how it operates.
And the thing is, what is unfortunate is that literally is an example that, technically speaking, with the correct leadership and motivation and the correct structure and framework, officers that come from the same academy, that come from the same society, that work for the same institution, the perception by the public could be vastly different. So what is it that the rest of the TTPS, or most of the rest of the TTPS, is not doing that I believe it's now the Special Victims Unit is doing? So, right?
There are specific units that go unmentioned in the organization. The level of professional and because they don't interact with the general public, it's specific crimes, such as the fraud department. That's more personal because it takes more in depth because financial issues, they don't generally bring that out to the general public, right? Then you have financial investigations, anti-corruption. There are a lot of other departments that deal with certain things. These officers are trained, just like the rest of the officers, basic training. You get more the conflicts, or I should say more the reports when persons go to police stations to report crimes, but they seem to don't understand. The public wants address immediate. The police officers need to take, in some situations, the police don't have the answers that you want.
No.
So the way it is viewed by the public is that they don't like the police. They don't always like the police officer. When they're in problems, they go to the police, and when they go to the police, in twofold, sometimes the police don't react, the officers don't react in a professional manner, or respond in a professional manner and give them the satisfaction that they need. So they always have conflicts. One of the things that we just recently, they had you mentioned about the new body radars.
Yes.
The radars were existing. They had these are updated versions that will give the police officers a bit more advantage in the context that normally, we see officers out facing the radar gun, and all of a sudden, everybody flashing lights coming on, government boat that police doing speed. It's a good thing because why? If another driver give you a light and say, hey, speed is taking place, the objective has been achieved. You need to slow down because police is there. But not when you pass the police, they speed up again because, hey, it ain't no police anyway. So when you look at this aspect of it, when you look at the driving culture, so the guns are very good, the speed guns are very good, in that it additional tools to the police. But we're still missing. We're still missing a key element, and I am hoping that both the minister as well as the commissioner, in a very short space of time, address the concern, because the body cameras that we need.
According to one caller, one of the media ambassadors or the officer on Beyond the Tape said that there is a procurement process for the body cameras. My point was, it's been a year.
And like I said, there is a process, but I'm still saying, with interactions, you need the body cameras to give the level of transparency or provide the level of transparency.
The first step is to start the procurement process, okay? Then you have to finish the procurement process and actually buy, because they aborted the previous attempt, right? Then it's the policies around how you disclose video evidence, because having the evidence to exonerate officers from certain situations matters not if you do not then reveal it in some form or the other that it could be effective. But coming back to the original point, trust and confidence in the police, you pointed to the fact that the commissioner approved or authorized the AG. That's the term he used, right?
That's what came out of the media report.
Well, right, the media report. Here's the thing. Because there's always reality and public perception. And at least half the time, if not more, I'm more concerned with public perception, because that's what the public is going to take the ball and roll with.
Exactly.
Right? And in a situation like this, where you have the AG making a claim, and there is nothing going on with regards to anybody's behavior, including government ministers, with regards to any concern. I think a source, it might be from the police, said 2 ministers might have had increased security, but it was with regards to the fact that they were working late, something like that, right? So we haven't seen any indicators. Now Joe Public is going to, at least the ones who are not supporters of the government or the UNC, they're going to have questions. And those questions are going to be indirectly tacked on to the commissioner. And because it's going to be tacked on to him, because he was mentioned, it will be tacked on to the police service with regards to what kind of games you're playing now with this nonsense. I'm just saying, and my new thing to say, which is true because I'm always surprised, no matter how harsh my opinions are, some of my friends have harsh opinions. And they are not diehard supporters of anybody to say that they want to see the UNC to fail. So however harsh their opinions are, there's probably a subset of the population with even harsher opinions. So you have to, don't think I am being mean or biased. It gets a lot worse out there in the public. And what I'm saying is not necessarily always what I think, but it's what I think a lot of the public, or a big enough portion of the public, will be thinking moving forward when they see and hear these things. We have move on the line. We'll take the call. Quick caller, you're on the air. Caller, good morning.
Good morning, Sean. Good morning, Mr. Ali.
Morning, sir.
Mr. Ali, some time ago I called in and I raised the issue of noise pollution. And I was quite clear, and I said that I have a right to enjoy peace and quiet in my home. It's a right that I have, that all citizens have, in this country is supposed to be guaranteed by the Constitution. And it's a right that I believe all politicians, all police officers should be aware of. You responded by saying that the bar, which is the person disturbing my life, also has a right to enjoy their property. And I was like, that statement sort of threw me off because it sounded like you are not, you couldn't, I told myself you couldn't be aware of how deep and how inconsiderate noise pollution really is. Because, Mr. Ali, a bar has the right to play music. I, as a citizen, also have the right to play music because I have a stereo system of my own. But a dancehall license or a bar license doesn't give the bar the right to play the music so loudly that it disturbs me. And that is something that I expect any adult who understands what a civil society is should understand. But it seems that that is not what is happening in this country. And I'll go further to tell you that from my knowledge, and this information I would have gotten from the media, not from Ramshopto, there has been at least 3 incidents of people losing their lives in this country, 1 incident of someone being stabbed or chopped. And these incidents came out of this argument about noise. There was also recently a situation where a newborn baby died. No, we don't have 100% clear evidence, but it was said by the family of this child that the pressure of the noise and the fireworks is what killed the baby the night of whether it was earlier or Diwali, whatever, one of those situations. And all these things are reported in our newspapers. And the next day, everyone, including those who ought to be the ones helping or dealing with the situation, we go on as business as usual. And I'm saying to you again, I wonder if you would have since then reflected on that statement that you gave. Because coming from somebody who was a police officer, that I cringed. Because I am not unreasonable. I have lived where I am living from birth. The bar has always been in the area. But the problem with the bar only began when the bar changed ownership. And also, and I keep saying that a lot of people seem to not be aware of it, when technology improved and sound systems became more efficient and more portable, is when noise pollution really became a problem in Trinidad and Tobago. It is not shown, it is not cultural. The only cultural aspect involved in this noise pollution problem is the culture of us being poorly governed from the beginning, and we don't consistently, and we have never consistently enforced laws. Top laws, bottom laws. And I keep telling you that, Sean. And if you listen to the professor says the same thing. A lot of the problems in Trinidad and Tobago have been caused by lack of law enforcement, whether you are a minister, whether you are a taxi driver. And too many Trinidadians don't seem to understand that. And that ignorance, as far as I'm concerned, is perpetuated by the media's failure to address this. Okay? Thank you, gentlemen. Have a good day.
Thank you, caller. I mean,
so I hate to respond to somebody who I can't get a response to get his comment.
Yes, but I didn't want to interrupt.
Fair enough.
Yeah, so you see, this is like as a catch-22.
He misquoted, because on the last occasion I said that when he's complaining about when he said that he has a right,
yes,
Mova has a right to enjoy his, I also said that the business has a right also. Police is in the middle. The police has to be objective and fair. It cannot be biased. So even if you have a right to enjoy your property, the business has a right to carry out their property. The police is always in the middle. which rights...
That's the point that you're making, not that the business has rights.
That is the point I keep making.
It's the police now.
They keep blaming the police for not enforcing the law. There are parameters in which the laws need to be enforced with.
So I want to say two things. One, you have noise pollution issues with law enforcement in this situation, not having a clear, always having a clear objective answer to it.
I could ask,
right?
We could
in
ask.
Other countries, not just TNT, but also, you want to say it's not cultural? The culture moved, right? The culture changed. Where did the culture change? With all the feds. Because at the end of the day, this is why it's cultural. When you ask Woodbrook about noise pollution with carnival feds, they reach a point where they just accept it.
And then there are certain areas under the noise pollution rules that their decibel levels vary for certain areas, where you have control over certain, where EMA have controls over some, and EMA do have control because of certain areas. I keep hearing MOVA, and I understand, I empathize with MOVA.
Yes.
And this is not directly towards MOVA, but for all persons who have an issue with noise pollution, there is something called renewal of bar license annually. The police, when the police goes before the court, and applications, when persons who have bar license come before the police and they go to the renewal application, there is nothing from the public that when application, no, so this is not for the police cannot deal with something that is not existent. So some concerns are made.
He's going to hear that and he's going to say, what do you mean it's not existing?
Right.
Right? He's not understanding the context of what you're saying.
Exactly. So you have persons who have concerns with specific bars, and I'm talking generally. Generally, if you have an issue where a bar, this is how the police application, the application for renewal operates, or even new. It comes to the police has an investigation to determine the renewal of whether it change ownership or anything like that, any new issues surrounding the application for the bar license. There's a hearing date. On the hearing date, after the investigation is sent to the court prosecutor, the prosecutors present the case. The magistrate asks the prosecutor, do you have any objections towards this individual? Does the police have anything that's stating that the application shouldn't be renewed? No, ma'am, or no, sir, we don't have anything at all. There's nothing on file. Good? Citizens have a right at the same time to go to the court and find out when these applications are being renewed annually, present their case, bring their petition. The police is not the one can petition against the bars.
And I'd like to say, before anyone says, why does the members of the public have to do it? Listen, this is probably an old law, and it was set up that way in part for a reason.
So the thing about it is that the police cannot object without supporting objections.
But I want to go further because this is the thing. Not all instances of noise pollution are going to be the same. I understand MOVA has a specific issue.
Exactly.
And I understand certain bars, the people living around them also have specific issues. And I understand for some bars in the country, they were not set up properly, or they should not have been allowed permission to set up where they set up. But that's not for every bar. But more importantly, let's take Woodbrook, for example. Let's take the Avenue.
Yeah.
Noise pollution was an issue for those who still resided in the Avenue. Now you have to ask yourself, you can't get more public of an example than that, where obviously the authorities, the government, the police, everybody knew what was going on. So now you have to ask yourself the question, why? When I say culture, it is because on some level, you can't pay off all them judges and all them magistrates and all them police officers and all them city councillors and all them mayors just for the Avenue to operate like that. Those businesses ain't that rich. And the casinos don't make noise pollution. They keep everything inside.
Yeah.
So what allowed it to happen? And it had to be a society. And I'm not saying that the society was right to do this. When I say it's cultural, it's not that I'm saying it's cultural as an excuse. I'm not saying it's right. But what I am saying is people are accepting it. And that is allowing the situations then that you are complaining about to happen. And part of the problem, yeah, I know, but let me make the point because he's not going to want to be interrupted, right? Part of the problem is you have to, similar to getting people to obey these traffic laws, you have to, because it's what do we say about that? It's a culture of speeding now.
Yep.
It's not just we don't enforce the law. No, it's a culture of speeding because the police are giving out speeding tickets. People still want to speed, right? Part of it is the gaps. You have to be able to move the culture of society to change what society is willing to tolerate. Because if too many people are willing to tolerate the bars, the lone voice in the wilderness will be disregarded. And yes, that is wrong, but that is also reality insofar as what I have observed, not what I think or what I want it to be, but what I have observed. We'll take the call now. If he's still there, sorry for the wait, Mover. Welcome back.
Yes, gentlemen. Mr. Ali.
Yes.
I'll repeat. I have been having a problem with noise in my area for over 30 years, going and coming. Because there was a time it was dealt with by the EMA when the EMA was operating a certain way and dealt with within a matter of weeks, and the problem went away. So I just want to, you see, I have heard a million times this story about the bar license. First of all, I've even written on numerous occasions. I wrote the former AG twice on this issue, and I told them, I said, listen to me. You all don't seem to understand what you see, and I realize that is a major problem. None of you will ever, to me, from your reaction and what I hear you all say, I don't think none of you will ever lay down in your bed at night and can't fall asleep because you're hearing noise. I don't think any of you will ever really experience it.
Move on. I have. Move on.
I have.
Move on. Before
I have.
Move on. Before.
No problem, Sean.
Move on. Before you go further.
How often have you experienced it, Sean?
Move on. Before you go further.
At one point it was weekly.
All right, move on. It is on.
Hello?
Move on before you go further.
All right.
It is unfair to say that we have not experienced it. Nobody is, neither Sean myself haven't empathized with you on the situation that you are presenting yourself. I am simply saying to you, and I keep saying it over and over, you have been addressing the issue of noise pollution and how noise pollution operates. I am giving you two different perspectives. Your perspective is from your side, and I'm just giving you another perspective on my side. I am not saying that it is not existing. There are limitations towards how law enforcement treats with it. And I'm going to make it abundantly clear. Yes, they have police officers who may not have been sensitive enough to treat with it. When you come to the application for bars, I'm just asking a question to you here. Any specific bars in the area, have you the community objected or gone to the police when time for license application and made strong objections to the court with respect to the license? Yes or no? Has that been done?
Not in my area, sir. And let me go further to just explain something to you that all police officers seem to be unaware of. People in Trinidad, there are areas in Trinidad and Tobago, or there are places in Trinidad and Tobago where, and I can't blame them, where citizens just don't want to stick their neck out because they fear for their safety, they fear for their family's safety, they just don't want to be disliked, and different reasons like that. And the police continue holding this opinion in their head that every resident, every area, every neighborhood, it is so easy for you to go and call on the others and say, let's get together, and it will happen. It's not something that happens everywhere, especially at this high crime time when people are getting shot all over the place, guns are all over the place. There are a lot of people who don't want to get involved in that way. That doesn't mean that they are not suffering. But they figure, well, I better take this suffering and go and stick my neck out. And the police, every time the police speaks, even some politicians when they speak as if they are unaware of that. They speak as if this country is a very peaceful country and there's no area where somebody would be afraid that people don't trust the police.
And exactly.
And for other reasons, because people will have reported other types of crimes, and they have said many times on different programs, even in the newspaper, That's the next thing, the perpetrator get to know who made the report. So hold on. So you all have to be aware of that. You all seem to be unaware of that every time you all speak. Here, the next thing that you all seem to be missing. And let me just say this before I go on. When I speak about noise pollution, it's not just about my situation, sir. I have said it before. I'm a member of a group. The group is CANPAT. And I can tell you, maybe I should invite you and Sean to go on the CANPAT chat. It's on Facebook. And see the level of suffering all over Trinidad and Tobago. I don't have it as bad as many people because my situation is not every day and every night. There are people who are having it every day and every night. And you have to understand something. When you can't sleep on a regular basis every night and you are being told, no, I must go to court, expose myself to maybe threats and violence, plus I have to wait months. Dinner and noise pollution cannot be connected to putting a bar out of closing down a bar because you have to take all this time going and coming. You might not have transport. You see, you all speak about what the law says and you all don't seem to understand the practicality of it.
Well, caller, I'm pretty sure if you objected in the court for the bar license renewal, you wouldn't be waiting months because the bar license won't be renewed. So that, if I am correct, hold on. If I am correct, I could argue the same thing, that you have not necessarily utilized. And look, I understand the state of crime. I get it. But that doesn't mean that the police could then, at least in some cases, go beyond what they can do. Here's the thing. I understand that the can't PT or sorry if I get the acronym wrong. CANPAT TT, right? I understand they speak about a lot of situations across the country. Do they speak about every situation around the country? Again, when the residents of Woodbrook, who had a very public situation, when they could not get that redressed, you have to ask the question, why? We're not disagreeing with you that it's wrong, you know. This is why you don't seem to understand. This is why I'm saying your attempts to make it public and to fight for the situation, like writing to the AG, are not working. Why? It can't just be because people are willfully ignoring the law, because at some point the public should be concerned about these things, but they're not. And it's not as though that there haven't been public examples in the papers, in society. And that's why I say there is a level of tolerance to this that has to be reversed. Otherwise, you will not get your victory on this matter. You just won't.
And it's not about it.
Sean,
And Mova, it is not only bars. You see, we say
yes,
bars, but there are residential properties. There are residents.
Sean,
also.
Is it tolerant, or is it that there are people who are deliberately blocking this issue? And let me make something clear. I'm not only blaming the police for this one. I tell you, I have written over the years numerous persons. Right? The police is just one aspect of it. Okay? I'm not blaming the police. There seems to be people in parliament who, for whatever.
Whoa, what happened there? All right, call back. You could call back because we didn't mean to cut you, right? So you could call back, but we have Sanfan on the line. Caller, good morning, you on here? Oh, we lost Sanfan as well. I don't know if we just had a problem with the phone lines. Listen, yes, I know that there's corruption involved, at least on an anecdotal level, right? I think the reason why, there's a very, very simple reason why the politicians don't want to get involved. And it comes back down to if enough of their perceived voting base don't see this as an issue, and if the politicians view it as unpopular to treat with, because you're potentially gonna mess with things like carnival and carnival fetes. And carnival is the great distraction. Every year, no matter what goes wrong with the country, there's a great reset of carnival that basically causes people now to forget about all the ills, right? Forget about all the issues, and then we go from carnival into Lent. Everyone's happy, which I don't like, but I've observed it multiple years now here on Talking Point, watching the current issues, and then everything chills for carnival, right? And the people are no longer as concerned about the crime rate and the economy. They're figuring how to afford for their fete, and they don't want their fete music because part of the culture is a certain decibel level, particularly with the bass, right? I know this because at times I've gotten sick at nightclubs and fetes because of the levels of the bass that you need to have. And I did a sound engineering course where that was a point that was derived with regards to sound engineers. You have to have that bass up because culturally that's what our audience wants. And that is one of the things that's probably causing the music to travel as far as it does, right? So there's a lot more to this than just say, oh, well, someone is blocking it. It is too big for one entity, person, or political agenda to be causing this. We have the caller back. Caller.
Hello.
Yes.
Hello.
Yes.
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 Yeah.
All right. I just want to say these last few points I wanted. Number one, and I've said it to police officers, and I'm going to say it to you all on air. I do not want the bar in my area. I do not want the bar to close down. To close down the bar, I will be putting people out of job. Yeah. People who sell food, they will be the other people who clean and whatnot. I don't want to put those people out of a job. And I keep telling people, a bar doesn't have to play music that loud to operate, because that wasn't the case years ago. So I am saying, when the police tell me, hey, go on the bar, I don't want to hear nothing about the bar license, because even that statement makes it sound as if the only way a bar could operate is to play loud music, and that is false. There are bars all over Trinidad and Tobago. There are some of them who have signs in the car parks, no loud music, so they don't want cars to play loud music, and those bars make a profit. So what is this mindset that has formed and has been allowed to form by people who are influential about, well, if you have a noise in the bar, stop and get the license? No, those two things should not be. If there's something else going on at bars, right? Something else where lewd things happening, and there might be a school near bars, and you want to close it down for that reason, yes. But to tell me that you are actually giving me advice, the only way to stop a bar from playing loud music is to close down the bar. That is nonsensical as far as I'm concerned. And I have told that, and I have written up, and I have told people that makes no sense. Stop telling people that.
Why Mova still insisting on it? Mova, going to the court.
Let me explain. Hold on, let me just tell you one last thing.
Go ahead.
There are people in the group who are having problems with neighbors playing loud music. There's people who are having problems with shops playing loud music. Where's the license there? The problem has nothing to do with the bar license. It has to do with noise, and people don't seem to understand that. When you're responding to somebody who's complaining about noise, please deal with them where the noise is concerned and stop telling them things about bar license. There's a neighbor next door playing loud music. There's a tire shop playing loud music. What are going to do? Close down everything?
Mova, we were speaking about, you were speaking specifically to a bar, so we are addressing the issue of the bar.
Caller. We were speaking and tried to introduce other elements, and you refocus the conversation on bars. So you then now cannot come and complain that we are talking only about bars. That is not how this works.
Gentlemen,
and then
I have always said that my complaining about noise has never been about my situation. I have told you all that, because
yes, I understand that. But don't come and act as though we decided to only speak about bars this morning on the issue.
I did not suggest that.
That's what your words implied just now. Just saying. Right? Because you are speaking directly to us. So yes, we understand that there are things that are not with regards to bars, but we were addressing the bar scenario because that's what you were focusing on at the point in time.
And Mova, just remember one thing. Going to the courts when an application for a bar license has to be renewed, it is not to revoke the bar license. It's to address the concern with the noise that the bar generates. The magistrate puts requirements, restrictions for this bar license, the bar owner, to address certain things. And if there are a number of concerns, eventually the bar license will be revoked. It is not an immediate revocal. But if the person's don't go and address the
It's a
concerns.
process.
It's a process. So it is not about saying I'm going to a bar and I'm going to take away from the person. No, you're not going to take away. There will be restrictions placed in it because the citizens in the area have concerns, and the concern is that if they put down the music, we will allow them to continue. But if they continue causing problems, there are repercussions. So it is not about you alone, and I'm saying this holistically. Throughout Trinidad and Tobago, people complain about music. They complain to the police. The police will go speak to them. The police hands are tied. I don't know why people don't understand. The police hands are tied because you need evidence to go before the court. The magistrate, the court asks for your evidence. The police cannot present the evidence if they don't have supporting documents or statements from the community. Because
in this case, a statement of fact is not, I, police officer, there, music loud. A statement of fact is, I was there, measurements were taken, so-and-so was done, so-and-so was documented.
As well as it is continuously causing a nuisance to several persons in the area. This is how the court look at it. It's not, people keep blaming the police when it comes to noise, but the police only can deal with it from a specific, there's only a parameter in which we could deal with. Right? Just like any other case, if we don't have the evidence and support.
I suspect what happened was, FETs became bigger, FETs became louder, and similar to how the coup kind of revealed the fact that there are limitations with law enforcement against violent crime, the incremental increase in louder and louder music and more instances of parties, FETs, and bars with louder and louder music, right, essentially showed a section of the public, hey, I could get away if I do this, and it encouraged people to be more, well, look, on some level, there are bar owners who think the music needs to be loud. Whether it's right, I'm not saying that it's right, I'm just saying they believe that. Well, hold on, I don't know if Mova's gone yet.
Gentlemen, I want to invite you all. Hello?
Yes, we're hearing you.
I want to invite you all to go from time to time on CANPAT's chat, let me just Citizens Against Noise Pollution TT, and just scroll through what people all over this country. I understand what you said about the process. Right now, there's a bar that has gone to the court, and the court has restricted the bar from playing music until because it's ongoing. You know how our courts operate. And the bar is still playing music loudly. So, and let me make it clear. I know I come down very hard on the police, but I am also aware it's not the police alone. This is not about the police alone, but as I've mentioned to Sean before, I don't know how the hierarchy of the police operates. All I can say is, as a normal citizen that isn't very bright, I have no degree. But if I was a member of the hierarchy of the police service, and I read newspapers and I'm aware of what's going on, I listen to programs, and I would have heard over the last 15, 20 years the amount of complaints about noise, I would have thought that I would meet with the relevant people like the AG, the Minister of, I can't remember what, and to tell these people, let's have a discussion and see what we can do collectively to make this thing easier for you to be dealt with. No one seems to understand that I expect that is what is supposed to happen. Because at the end of the day, Sean,
we have another caller waiting. We have another caller waiting. We have another caller waiting.
The police. Okay, thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. I'll just say this. Why is it that this problem seems to be ignored by so many public figures? There ain't enough money in corruption to pay it off to this extent. There just isn't. It's not practical. It has to be because they perceive it as being something that they don't want to move on because it's unpopular. That's my opinion. It could be wrong, but it's one of those things where I think you need to disprove that as opposed to just saying it can't be true. We have San Fernando waiting, hopefully still on the line. Caller, good morning.
Morning, Sean.
Morning.
Morning, Mr. Ali.
Morning.
Sean, I wanted to ask you if it's possible for you to try to get the head of the Tobago Hoteliers Association. I can't remember the gentleman's name.
I could try. I did
your
reach out to
program.
him. I think around the election and early into his appointment or his election or what have you. But we'll see. I don't know. Sometimes I feel association heads, they're trying to play politics with their messaging as well. Let me just put it that way. I don't know. But I have reached out to him already.
Right, because I think in this particular discussion which you had this morning about the situation with hotels and hotel rooms and that type of thing, I think we need to get their input into our conversation. I would like, I know you're reaching out, but I'd like you to, if it's that you could get him on the program. Now that being said, let me say this about the issue with the threats to ministers, which was presented by the AG in the parliament.
Mm-hmm.
Did the commissioner come out and say that he gave the AG permission to make that statement? Or is the AG that said it in the parliament only?
I think the report said that the commissioner corroborated that.
I can't say that I can't remember hearing the commissioner coming out directly in any media brief, but that was reported in parliament.
The report says it was confirmed yesterday, meaning Wednesday. It was confirmed Wednesday by the Commissioner of Police, according to one daily newspaper.
Yeah, so.
It is starting to look as if it's a cry wolf situation. I just saying how it's looking.
Yes, how it's looking.
It's starting to look like that. It's starting to look like that. So the distrust and confidence keep going down with respect to the ruling party. They have to be careful of this. That's what I'm saying. Now, I listened to a long time with Mr. Mover. The reason I had to come off time because you all almost make me burn my breakfast. However, I understand, let me say this, Mr. Ali, with respect to that situation. There's a thing that we don't have a lot of in Trinidad and Tobago anymore, and it is called initiative. The EMA knows that this noise pollution thing is a serious problem.
Mm-hmm.
They know that.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yet, not enough resources have been put, and I think they have the resources. I may rephrase that. I know they have the resources. But it seems as if it has to have initiative to work together with the police. Because let me give an answer. I would call the police to say there's an issue. There was an issue by my mother-in-law with a bar that opened. It was so bad, the music was horrendous. Because she lives like 2 houses away. On a weekend, Mr. Ali, the situation with parking, they would block the driveway gate. They would block the walking gate. You couldn't get in and out. I started to see my mother-in-law imagine saying, I have to reach home early today because I don't want to block the gate. And I'm outside. It was a situation like that. And numerous calls were made to the police to address the situation. And it was a hit and miss. You would call, nobody would come. They might come tomorrow. They might next week, they don't come. The week after, they don't come. The next week after that, they might come. And that situation developed. Now, my situation is with what you're saying with the courts, Mr. Ali. If it is that you, as a complainant, are not prepared to put a bill out of your pocket, this ain't going nowhere, you know. You have to get an attorney and build a case against that bar, you know. I know that for a fact. You know. You have to try and build a case because you can make reports. And when that bar license comes up in the court and the police are asked, they have no complaints. And if it is that you, as the complainant, though, have not gone to the bar, see when the license expires and have your attorney check that to make sure that when it comes up, you could go to court. The police have the police not presenting any information, Mr. Ali. They could have 100 reports when the magistrate asks them, they say no. And this is the situation. The situation is, now if it is that the police and the EMA work in tandem, and EMA says to the police, and I said it goes back to initiative, the EMA says here, what's going on? If it is that you all have repeated reports on a situation, let us know and we will come and do an investigation with you all. What are the days of I think on a Friday, on a Saturday, or Sunday, or Tuesday, or Wednesday, whatever. And there has to be some kind of initiative, but the initiative is the problem in Trinidad and Tobago.
Yeah, but the EMA have the own
lawyers.
Sorry,
the EMA have a lot of things to do, but that is one of the portfools, Mr. Ali, and I keep saying, I just say this initiative.
So you see, that is what I'm saying. So I have worked alongside the EMA with the issues with Woodbrook. And concerning some of the issues, and EMA have their police. EMA have limitations that they don't tell people at the same time, you know, with the respect to that. Noise pollution in Trinidad and Tobago. You have to be directly involved in it, or have to be directly suffering from it, like how in Mobile's case, or in your case with your mother-in-law. If you are not a specific or directly a victim of it, nobody really cares about it, and that is the reality of it. Because I'm sorry to say, we have become so tolerant about music and noise. So it's music and noise. So it's two different things. We hear music and we believe music is noise, but at the same time, we become so tolerant about it. How we play loud music, it becomes a challenge for other persons. Because of our development in certain communities and certain areas that before we never had, everything becomes, the noise becomes such more prominent in certain areas. That is a big challenge. So this issue that we're talking about, noise, it cannot be dealt with from one perspective alone. It's everybody has to be on board with it. Even when it comes to the legislation, improving on the legislation doesn't take away, wouldn't change the fact that no one wants to come and put something unless there are sanctions put in place where it comes to noise. And this is the challenge you're going to face. When you tell persons...
Not only sanctions, Mr. Ali, the enforcement of the sanctions.
When I say enforcement and sanctions, I'm relating to the same thing. When you ask some individuals, and this is this difference, when police officers are on the street issuing tickets, the police are responsible for issuing the tickets. They don't need any supporting documents to do that. They identify, they are the complainants, they do it. But when it comes to noise, victims need to come forward. And there are multiple reasons why victims don't come forward, because of different things, geographical locations. They don't want to be targeted. This is similar to crime on the whole. So noise and crime could be related, put on the same scale.
Yes, totally agree.
With respect to how it is dealt with it. So when I keep hearing Mova cry, but Mova is not understanding the cries that the other side that we are saying is that we're not saying that we're not empathetic towards him, but it is not Sean and myself alone could change this. This is just a one program. This is just our own views. Too much administration and too much administration, and even when the police who take some initiative in certain areas, and I can tell you from my perspective, I have dealt with a lot of persons when it comes to noise and gone on multiple occasions, try to pacify certain situations, try to be diplomatic in certain aspects of it. You still don't get the level of support that you want, because you can't go and tell your neighbor, your neighbor complaining, because as soon as police leave, you will end up with some conflict.
Mr. Sanfernando, we have another caller.
Yeah, no problem, Sean.
All right.
Let me just say one thing quickly to Mr. Ali. Mr. Ali, just I want to listen off the line. When a situation is, I call and I make up, and the police come in a situation where there's an issue with noise, what authority does the police really have to say, lower down Thank you. Have a good weekend.
Hold on, let's take the Martin quick. This has to be the last call because we need to wrap up. Caller, good morning. Caller, you there? Diego Martin?
Hello?
Hi, morning.
Morning, Sean, and morning to the ASP. A couple of issues. I have been always agitating to see how we can fix the TTPS. Always adding my two-piece to see how we can move the TTPS forward. Yesterday on the newspaper, another case was thrown out because the affidavit, etc. statement wasn't filed on time. And this was the fourth time, and it failed again. So that has to be either the DPP or the charging policeman, etc. I have some suggestion that a citizen like me possibly will have my confidence level greater in the police service if a number of things is done. One, a tribunal that could basically act efficiently and promptly. I don't believe the tribunal, disciplinary tribunal, is functional or efficient in the TTPS. Two, I believe the sergeant is responsible for the operations of the police station. And I believe everybody from sergeant and above should file integrity in public-like forms. Three, all prosecutions against police officers should be televised. So we see what goes on, and as citizens, we can identify what is happening inside there. Four, remove the current police service commissioners, because I believe they have the commissioner of police and ties with respect to disciplinary matters against senior executive officers. And the fifth one is all the above. Revise, look at the Police Service Act and improve it so we can move forward. Another quick point. In the newspaper, the industrial court, journalists highlighted all the outstanding cases in the industrial court. I mean to say, that is startling when you read it. I am hoping that somebody take a leaf out of that journalist and do a FOIA for the current judiciary to see all the outstanding cases and how they stack up by judges in the judiciary at this point in time. I'll listen off air. Good morning. Yeah, bye.
Thank you, caller. I'm not sure if a Freedom of Information request could look into, maybe if it's concluded cases. I don't know if it could go into active cases. That's an interesting gray area.
This is very interesting.
I'm just doing a quick search.
Yeah, but just add to San Fernando, when a noise complaint is made, the law enforcement officers, they have the authority to tell persons to lower music because you're causing a disturbance to other individuals.
But past that?
They could give them several warnings, put everything like, you're putting the warnings like that, and so it's warnings. It's warnings, not an offense.
Right. I think the problem is lower down the music. They lower down the music. The police can't stay there for the rest of the night.
However,
so when the police leave.
However, if the police, and this is what I'm saying, if the police go on a repeated time, and they make the relevant entries in a diary, in any station diary, and when these matters, when the renewal of the application comes, the police could present those information at the same time, right? So it's about supporting evidence. So it means that every time a police officer goes and attend to these situations, and then according to San Fernando, it's a hit and miss. Sometimes they go, sometimes they don't go. It's like you have to build a case 3, 4, 5 times talking to the person about the same offense over and over.
Right, one complaint is not enough.
Right. So and you build your case from that perspective.
Or if the whole community had multiple complaints.
Right. So it's either individual officer or multiple officers on different shift go and build the case, and then we have to attend to this report on a regular basis. So there are multiple ways to deal with it, but the strongest out of all is the supporting witnesses, because if the police, it will be very subjective. But when you have witnesses, communities are being affected, the court takes that into consideration, but at the same time, you have to understand the geographical location and where the bars are located in certain communities. Now, sometimes I believe the application process for a bar license is too liberal.
Yeah.
Right? Because the police sometimes just get an application, get an application from the courts straight to the police and say, look, this bar is going to open. When you check, the bar is open from another, right next door to another bar. So the process is too liberal in terms of everybody has a business. And then if the police clamping down on it, there will be cry that we are trying to restrict businesses from getting involved in it. And then it's a whole different set of conversation, and this is where we have the problem with the challenges, I should say, when it comes to businesses.
But not just that. One of the things that I want to point out is we shouldn't act as though the noise pollution thing is some unique situation with the police being inefficient or willfully ignoring a problem, right? First of all, it's not one thing. It's not that there is some great crime boss in the sky that is paying off all the police officers around the country to ignore noise pollution. It's not one factor that is harming the police. Part of it is the rules and regulations and the limitations of the law. Part of it is slackness. Part of it is corruption. Part of it is just the complexity of, well, I need the support of the public, otherwise I can't actually, there's only so much I could do on my own. Part of it is the limitations of the process, right? The slackness then is multifaceted. It's not just slackness on noise pollution alone, right? It's, look, this is according to the opposition chief whip. When he asked the government answered the question. 135 murders for the year, 11 prosecuted. So on one hand, you have to question, the police now, the detection rate is not even 10%, right, according to that statistic. But then on the other hand, the population, while yes, there is concerns about the murder rates. When's the last time that the public did anything with regards to voicing displeasure with regards to the murder rate? The last year that it was at 600, yes, people might have complained, but was it in any meaningful way? So we had to wait until multiple years of 600 murders, multiple years of seeing a minister of national security seemingly doing nothing, right? Multiple years of the commissioner of police situation being in a mess, right? And then when we had an election, we voted that party out of office. Right? Because we don't actually know how to treat with the situation out of that. We want to go, like, he wrote a letter to the AG. That's not part of the process. I mean, to be fair, yes, the AG potentially can involve himself, but on some level, there might be certain reasons why it might actually be improper for him to do so at times. So going to the top, it's not like he's the CEO of, say, Carib. Let me just, right, don't mean anything about it. But a private entity, well, yeah, the CEO has a lot more leeway than a public official, no matter. There are things the Prime Minister can't do. The Prime Minister can't just wave a magic wand and force a private sector entity to change its behavior because she says so. With that said, what did I say when the Prime Minister said she's going to work towards noise pollution? I basically, and I can't fully remember exactly what I said, so please forgive me, I'm going to paraphrase myself ironically. I was kind of, I'll believe it when I see it. I didn't necessarily expect that this initiative, right, I need to see more to say, oh yes, she's going to solve the problem. We all saw a good start. We all saw the conversation starting, and my issue was a conversation starter is not the beginning of a solution. It is the beginning of the process to a solution.
But the noise
right?
pollution specific, but the conversation was for a specific entity or a specific group.
Or a specific time period.
Right. Noise pollution exists year long.
Now, I believe the government indicated that they were also going beyond just carnival issues.
Exactly.
But again, I ain't see it yet.
And
right?
And
I was the one that insisted it had to start from the top because you had to streamline the laws to deal with whatever the technical challenges were. But the slackness, we basically have a situation where we have an issue with trust and confidence on things like murder. Why are we now going to then say, oh, well, yes, but the response to noise pollution, that's especially bad. It's like, no, now, again, with murder, you can't just say, oh, well, the police stupid and corrupt, and that's why the detection rate is so bad. It can't just be that. Like, it's too big of an issue for you to say that the police literally, that most police officers refuse to investigate murders, and that's why the detection rate is so bad. It literally cannot be that, right? And more importantly, if it is, well, what, we just sitting down here and accepting it and not saying nothing about it, if that's what we perceive to be the truth? No, it's more complex than that. And unfortunately, that's where noise pollution is. There is a certain amount. It's not just we don't enforce the laws and order. The law breaking on a certain level is culturally accepted because we don't speak out about it. Even if we disagree with it, it happened and we move on. We don't call the police on every little thing. And honestly, if we call the police for every little thing, literally, they won't be able to move just based on the sheer swamp of reports they'll be drowning in because of the amount of speeding and the amount of littering and the amount of public weed smoking, etc., etc., etc. Right? We have enough murders, home invasions, chain robberies, Facebook marketplace fraud, etc. Right? We ain't even counting on the little laws, and I get it. And I get it. But at the end of the day, it's in part because enough of us don't want to follow the laws. It is viewed as acceptable behavior, even though it is illegal and unacceptable. It is informally tolerated, from speeding to violence. So noise pollution is just part of that list. And if you want to claim some great exception, it's like, what did I just include? Speeding and violence. You could lose your life to a violent situation in noise pollution, but there are many more examples of just sheer outright violence. And as a society, we're having to try to tackle all of these things. Because unfortunately, look, when the police have issues getting witnesses to help deal with murder cases, it's an extreme example, but that's part of it, right? The thing with the threats against people speaking out against noise pollution, that's not even, in my mind, that's not even a noise pollution issue anymore. That's a violent crime issue at this point, right? So why is that not treated with, right? And if there are issues there, it speaks to more than just, well, police officers don't want to do their job, right? And I know that's not necessarily what you're saying, but at times your points of emphasis makes it come across that way. So,
well, you said a lot.
Yeah, I said a lot.
You said a lot, and I think you cover a lot of the areas of a lot of the points that we're talking about yet. So it's Trinidad and Tobago has to, and citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, you, myself, everybody who lives in Trinidad and Tobago have to understand that having laws doesn't mean because we have laws, we can break laws, right?
Case in point, in Japan, it's a culture,
right,
to not break the law. Like, I don't know how else to say it. I can't go into details.
So you don't need a law for every single thing. You know what's the right thing to do and what's the wrong thing not to do. Abide by it. I don't have to tell you there's a law for speeding. You don't have to get a ticket to know that you can't speed. A red light means stop. Slow down, proceed with caution, stop. It doesn't mean that if you see a red light there, you don't see a police officer, you have to drive through it and say, hey, nobody caught me tonight. If we have to be policing every single citizen of Trinidad and Tobago, it means that our police force has to be where? Far beyond than we have.
We don't have enough police, sir.
And it's not a matter of having police anymore.
So, quick things. The threat might be real that the AG spoke about. The problem is, Mr. Sanfano pointed out, the public perception might be it's a cry-wolf situation, and that might be the worst-case scenario, where it's a real threat, but the communication around it was so mismanaged that the public doesn't believe it, and then it causes issues with trying to treat with the threat. And that's one of the reasons why it's not just about what is the truth of the matter, but what the public perception is on the matter. And it should matter to elected officials. And even Gary Griffith said, this is ironic. He said, you don't have to tell the public everything. I'm like, the government that usually tells the public nothing? I think this is the exception, this is not the norm. He's making it sound as though the government needs to learn when to keep its mouth shut. It's like, no, they need to learn when to speak. And ironically, this probably is an example of when not to speak. So, anything to add to close that out quick?
I hope that the threat is not real. Right?
It puts the government in a weird position.
No, I hope the threat is not real in the context that when these threats are real, this speaks volumes to the level of criminal activities or the boldness and braveness of the criminals. If they could boldly make threats against state officials, it means that they're boldly threatening the states. And if criminals could boldly threaten the states, normal abiding citizens, law-abiding citizens, or average citizens who don't have the ability to have additional security measures put in place, where do we fall? And even law enforcement officers, when we are home, when we're not within the circle, we still are citizens as everybody else, and so we have to live right here. So I am saying that I am hoping that if the threat is real, actions and the reactions toward that threat is real. We see some real reaction towards it. And same way that people call out and ask for all these public officials and persons who are in criminal activities or alleged criminal activity be named and all kind of thing. Let's hear who's the gang leaders, which community they came from, who are they. Let us identify those individuals so people will know, listen, we are not afraid of you all, right? Because Trinidad and Tobago and the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago cannot be afraid of a group, of one small group, keep harassing 1.4, 1.5 million people. It can't happen now. It can't be that way. And if we allow them to keep on doing that, then are we going to live in threat or in a state of emergency or a state of fear for the rest of our lives? That is something we have to think about.
Well, are we living in fear? State of emergency. I mean, it's one of those weird things where we are in fear, and yet we don't feel as though we're in a state of emergency.
So when you ask the victims of real crime how they feel now, the ones who just want to speak about it, who have never been victims, being a victim is a totally whole new ballgame.
I mean, and that ties to your point where you say people who aren't going through noise pollution, it's easy for them to ignore it.
Yeah.
Right? But I think part of that is the cultural acceptance of it, right? It actually makes it easier to tolerate it because, but it's not, I don't think it's only because, well, it's not affecting me, so I literally want to ignore it. It is, no, I don't see the issue, this is the culture, right? It is what it is, right? At the end of the day, the problem is, it is that whatever the sentiment is, maybe we're misidentifying the sentiment, but it's widespread. Let's take the comment real quick. Sean talking non-stop, why I have a guess? Well, I'm pretty sure if you counted the minutes, I was not literally talking non-stop, right? But also, this is not a show where I have guests and I interview them and they have a book to promote and that's what it is. This is a show where there's dialogue. And callers called in and we had a dialogue. And I felt the need to respond any moment because I can't respond to the caller next week Friday. I have to respond to the caller today, right? And most of the time, not always, most of the time when I have people on the show, it is to have a dialogue. Sometimes it's a guest. The clue is when they're not someone that's been here before or they're not here semi-regularly. Then for those people, it'll be an interview. But with Ashraf, it's a dialogue.
We just speak. Sometimes at the end of the day, some person believe that, let's put it this way, you are the host.
Yeah.
A conversation. I am not the host, I am the guest. Right?
Well,
so
shows have different formats.
It have different formats. So the conversation is based on how you present and what you bring across, so I will respond to some things. Sometimes I don't have to respond to some things because of the fact that
and then
you already made the point.
Here's the best point. When I try to be efficient and shorten what I'm going to say, then someone is going to be like, but they're going to look at the limitation and complain that I didn't include this, so I didn't include that, or I didn't mention this, so I didn't account for that.
The texter should say, Sean speaks very fast.
It'll be interesting if that's the problem. I don't think that's the problem. I speak fast because I'm trying to condense as much as possible, but content is not something you can't.
So it's not about talking and stuff, it's about speed. No, it's a perceptions.
There you go. That is true. That is true. So on some level, even I am at the mercy of the public perception and have to take that into account. Way over time. So we'll end it there. Thanks to the commenter. Thanks to the callers. I understand the noise pollution problem, but ironically, this is similar. I was talking to Kaiso yesterday, and one of the things I said was, well, some of our issues will be solved because they're general societal issues, not just specific to us. Yeah. And I think the noise pollution is, to some degree, in that line with regards to tolerance or acceptance of law breaking and inefficiencies and accountability. Slackness comes from the top, just saying, right? It comes from the top. Whether it is leadership, and we could go beyond police executive, whether it's the leadership's own slackness or lack of accountability. We'll wait and see if we could see some better leadership and accountability from this whole current situation. Maybe, maybe not. Ashraf, thanks for joining me once again.
No problem.
Hopefully, things won't be, I don't know, as exciting next week. I don't know. This is one of those things.
Trinidad and Tobago.
Yeah, this is the world we live in now.
We love the excitement.
Yeah, I mean, when the Americans were here, it was so exciting. Folks, this is Talk About WSN. Remind you, stay safe. Remember, you lead to the Republic and to each other. It's nice to be nice. Have a good weekend. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
WESN